Welcome to the Thor Hammer project, part one. In this tutorial, we're going to cover how to create this essential base mesh of the tip of the hammer here. And yeah, we'll check it out here in Maya. I'm going to flip over to Photoshop here real quick. And here you can see from the Avengers Thor here with his hammer. And this is the hammer we're going to try and recreate. Again, we're going to do our best to do this, but we're just going to focus right now on this this part here. So we're going to ignore the rest of the hammer right now. And these other parts I've kind of highlighted green, we're going to ignore these. These areas we're going to essentially sculpt in ZBrush, or not ZBrush, but in Mudbox, which is an Autodesk sculpting program. And we want to sort of ignore them for right now. So yeah. But here's another view of this Thor hammer. And basically, if we turn on this part here, this is another part that we're going to kind of ignore, the cylinder part. So we're going to focus basically on the primitive structure of this. And you can see here it's essentially a cube, rectangular, that has been, and it has essentially extruded out faces. So the first extrusion would be like selecting this face and then the other face from the other side. I'll kind of draw a little green area here. It'd be this face here. And that would get you this first extrusion where you pull out these little areas here and here. After that, you would essentially then select the faces, which would be right here, this face, and this face on this side and the opposite side. And then to get the second extrusion, which would come out on both sides. And basically want to select faces on both sides to extrude at the same time to save in terms of time management. So let's check this out. We'll jump into Maya here. And I've already done one here, and you can see in the history here, if I click on the polycube, there's a width of 1.5. If you click on the first extrusion here, we can see the translate Z 0.3. And then the second extrusion has a 0.15 for the local translate Z. So I'm going to keep this out. So I'm going to kind of move it off to the side here, just by kind of using the arrow here to kind of drag it out. And you push it over just a little bit further, just to have as a reference. So we're going to create essentially a cube, and you can do this in your poly modeling shelf. There is a cube object here, and you just click on it and it will appear in the center here. But you want to go to the create menu and just make sure that the polygon primitive, you have interactive creation turned off. So again, if I go down to polygon primitive, sometimes this kind of flips around. I'm going to click on the Terra bar on the top here. You just want to make sure this is unchecked, because what happens if you have this checked, when I click on cube, you can see it's asking me to interactively create it, right? Which we don't want to do. We kind of want to set up the default of what a cube is. So we turn this off. When I click on cube, it defaults in the center here, and basically it's kind of like zeroing out all your transforms, but in terms of the construction history. So I'm going to close that out there. I actually have the cube added to my custom shelf here, which I could click, but if you don't have a custom shelf set up, you can choose the poly modeling shelf and just click on that cube there. So you can see here, basically, if we compare these two. Now right now it's kind of hard to see because you have to kind of click away to see the edges here. So I'm going to click on shading and here and go down to wireframe unshaded. That way the lines will kind of be evident regardless whether I have it selected or not. You can see here basically we need to make this a little bit wider here. Now I could use the scale tool and kind of scale it out, but you know, then I'd have to figure out some value here, which would be similar to clicking in here and changing the width. So if I click in here and just click on the polycube, you can see here I changed it to 1.5. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to click in here and change this width to 1.5. But if you want to interactively do it, you can click on the width tool and middle mouse and drag to kind of change any of these values. So I could click in here and change any of these that I want, you know, to change whatever scale I want. I'll bring it back to 1 here. And again, I'll just type in 1.5. I found that looked pretty good. So basically that's what we have. We have essentially that middle shape there. Now we're going to need to do extrusion on both ends to get this front face here. and the back face. And if we click on this, we can see with that extrusion value is 0.3 in the translate Y. So just got to remember that value of 0.3. So to select a face, all I got to do is right click and hold down the mouse on the object to go into the component mode. And you got this little widget and you can go to face mode and you can select the face. And then you can come around and hold the shift key and click on this face. This is my preferred method of working. However, if you're new to Maya, you can click on the modeling toolkit, which is this little icon here, and go into the components here with this little widgets up here. So if you're in object mode, you can click on the component face and do the same. Click on here and then rotate around by holding the Alt key and then hold Shift and click on that second face. Once we do that, we can click on the extrude button here, or we can use the hotkey of Control E. I prefer the hotkey. So now I just have to drag out, and you can start to see the value change here, that local translate. And so now I can type in a value of 0.3. Now you'll notice here that there is a difference. There's a scale that's happening there. To scale in these faces, and I can do both at the same time, after you've extruded out this amount, I can click on this blue cube right here on the end. And then click and drag on the little cube in the center here and drag to the left. And basically drag in so I'm at, basically that amount. So I can look at it from these other views to kind of see, and actually what I have there looks pretty good. Going these quad views, if I just tap the space bar, you can kind of see here. But I could, if I wanted to, I could keep dragging it to kind of line it up exactly. But this is a good guesstimation, and I just have a good feeling about it, and this looks pretty good. So yeah, that looks pretty good. I could go maybe a little bit more, maybe just a tiny bit. No, I liked what I had before, so I'm gonna leave it about there. All right. So now we've done that first extrusion. So now the tips look good, but now we need these sides here. So again, we just have to select this face, and this face, and then again rotate around, hold the shift key, and select these three. So again, we're doing extrusion on the two sides to create this edge loop that's in there. So again, I'm going to use a hotkey this time I'll just click on the button extrude. And then with this one, I'm going to go ahead and drag out that blue arrow, and you can start to see it comes out. And with this one, I believe it was 0.15, if I remember correctly, for the extrusion mount. And you can kind of see what's happening there. It looks about the same. Again, if it's not exactly the same, it's okay. Then I'm going to click on the blue cube, and again I'm going to try and scale this in a little bit and get this effect. So the scaling in basically gives me that sort of folding over sort of quality. And basically it's to your preference here on how much you want to do with this. I kind of want to have it pretty similar to that, and that looks about right. Now the final thing in here is just looking at it, we got nice edge flows that goes around here to the end. Looking at the sides, there is something different on there, but in the front it looks okay. If we look at the front there on both these front pieces, so what we're looking at now, it's a little minor. Sometimes people can think of it, but like you can see in here these edges here. So this edge, you can see this whole edge loop here, how this edge loop is completely straight on this object. I'll click on this one and double click. So that whole edge loop is straight, where this one, it's got this little kink here. And that's due to the extrusion process. Well, you can fix it just by double clicking on it like that and then hitting the R for scale tool. And then all you have to do is grab this yellow cube and drag inwards till it straightens out, basically. And that sort of flattens it out. So again, double click on here and then grab that yellow cube and kind of squish it in to straighten out. This will just give me better edge flow for the primitive here. And just looking around, everything else looks pretty good. We got a nice shape here. Everything looks good. Yeah, pretty happy with that cube result. Turning a cube into the Thor Hammer or the base shape. So that should do it for this tutorial. In the next tutorial, we'll go into the next step, which is adding divisions. Actually, let me move this guy out of the way just real quick. Next tutorial, we'll go over how to add divisions, and then we'll talk about adding edge loops or the crease tool to finalize our mesh. And we'll check that out in the next tutorial. See you soon. Cheers.